South Carolina economic leaders to speak about the arts?
No.
So there's an action step, right?
And I was just going to say, if y'all in these 10 counties are not including people like Jennifer on your team, then you're missing a powerhouse. So.
Well, I'll tell you that Alan Smith does not welcome a company into Spartanburg without asking me to attend or someone representing the arts. So we have a great advocate in our chamber leadership, and not just Alan, but their whole board, and our board as well. So
We call Jennifer the closer.
Speaking of that about closing, I don't have a watch on. What time is it? This time. You want to add? Yeah.
I would say, speaking of closing, I mean, I recognize that yes, this is very important, and certainly I'm an advocate for this. It's my job. But I also recognize that when companies are, say, looking for a location, this may not be the first thing they're looking at. I mean, we've got to have every competitive element that everybody else has, in terms of workforce, in terms of tax breaks, in terms of property that's available, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All that's got to be on the table, we recognize, before the deal gets made, or they're going to even be interested. But we are part of the closing package. The arts and culture are the thing that can bring it home. And so that's, I think, where we really have that important role to play and need to be part of that equation.
Thank you. I think that's so important. When you look at the embeddedness, I thought it was so interesting. Anthony talked about the creative economy, the for-profit creative economy versus the nonprofit. Of course, we're a nonprofit. We represent $32 million worth of economic impact just in Spartanburg County alone, the whole nonprofit arts sector. But there's a huge creative economy that is the for-profit. Grace Industries, for example, in Spartanburg County, corporate headquarters, they produce potpourri, candles, home accessories globally. They're over $100 million company. They're a creative industry. They provide jobs of perfumers that are creative, candle makers. Be thoughtful about who those creative industries are in your own county, the people that are making things. Even in manufacturing, the basis of a manufactured product is the design of the initial concept. So manufacturing is creativity at its core. And we know in the SC Works initiative, the very first world-class skill that the state of South Carolina is making a priority is creativity and innovation. Well, this creative sector, whether it's nonprofit, arts education, is creating that creative workforce for tomorrow. And so when you think about what this means, we also are using our cultural district, we're using it to highlight the vacancies in our downtown. So we're showing potential candidates who want to move into our city that they're surrounded by cultural assets, by things that are studios that are open in the evenings, by architectural offices and photographers. So they're like, gosh, that's a pretty positive activity. And so it can be used to fill your vacant locations in your more urban areas or even rural areas. So ask that. We also did an inventory of our creative people in our community, and that takes a lot more time. But make sure that you have a database of the creative people living in your community. Find out who the photographers are. Find out who the graphic designers are. Find out who the portrait artists are, and all the things, the folks that are in the formal arts, the music producers and the musicians and the dancers, because they're part of your creative economy, and that may not be their full-time job, but they're making, hopefully, a revenue from their creative ability, and they can help solve problems in the more for-profit sector. Other questions? Yes, Sue.
Anthony, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, and I'm going to ask if you are to share something. One of the things that surprised and enthused a number of water companies across the country a few years ago is when Denver Water used artwork at the bus stations in order to not just engage, but to help communicate the importance and the things that people can do about drought. Are you familiar with some of that artwork? Could you talk a little bit about that? Because that whole engagement with the community was another way of using art to change behaviors.
I think that's a good example of our quasi-public and public sector entities, for the most part, get the value of the arts. The regional transportation district, the water, all these people in the city of Denver understand, and they usually do it in the way she mentioned. It's not just like, we're gonna hire someone from Chicago who's a great artist or graphic artist, they're gonna see this water. It's like, how do we engage the community in creating this thing that they're then a part of and they see it and participate in it. So that attitude and going there first instead of going someplace else first is really helpful, and using the area people, the area artists, and very successful.
Another thing that's really important is for the nonprofit sector to collaborate with the for-profit sector. Elizabeth Goddard is here, who's the executive director of the Spartanburg Art Museum, and they work every month with the for-profit art galleries in our community to have an art walk. So it's not just the nonprofits that are leading that, but they're working in partnership with the for-profits. Elizabeth, you want to add anything? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you can do it.
Well, you know, this is a great point, and we do, the Art Museum does make a point to attend networking opportunities and meetings in the community, specifically downtown. For example, the Spartanburg Downtown Association, so we can start to begin to build the private-public networks that are vital to make our programming successful. And the Lighten Up Spartanburg Public Art Project in the Cultural District was all about the public and the private partnerships and employing 36 artists and raising $140,000 and giving a good percentage of that back to the artists, which we think is really a valuable thing to be doing.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anthony?
So another thing to add, I know you have a lot of higher education facilities around here, and my wife's an academic, and I'm periodically just appalled at how little some of her fellow faculty members work hard to promote the university, because they don't understand the university will not exist on its own unless everyone there is doing their own version of university development. And I think it's really important, and you've done a lot of that in this community. How do you infuse that sense of responsibility? But I'd say it's especially important sometimes at colleges and universities, because they are doing some of the job connects and all that, and they need to feel a part of that. I don't know if anyone's here from those institutions today, but if there are, I'd like to hear from you.
We have some representatives from Wofford and continuing education, actually, not even undergraduate. But any thoughts? I don't want to put you on the spot. Any thoughts about? I know Wofford connects a lot of students with. They come in as part of their orientation. They come to the cultural center, so that helps. Go ahead.
We have a lifelong learning at Wofford program, which is relatively new, we're almost 3 years old, and it's an initiative to engage the retired community in Spartanburg a lot more. And so we've really been surprised and excited by the growth that we've had.
We started with 180 people that were interested in taking classes, and it's ballooned to double that. And we're starting our spring semester, but it's really exciting to see more people that are moving into the Greenville-Spartanburg area who have vibrant minds, who have families down here, who are very excited to share the skills that they've retired from and learn new skills along the way. So I definitely believe that lifelong learning in whatever form is a huge asset to the community.
You know, and a lot of your programs address adult education and arts education. Why is being this connected as a region with all these cultural assets important to adult education?
Well, once again, it just offers such a wide array of choices and experiences. Anthony said something that I certainly wanted to mention as it relates to rural communities. Each community has a story to tell, and there's something unique there. And as you mentioned, the water tower. Greenwood has restored railroad cars, and 96 has a revolutionary war battlefield. So I think it's so important to, and that's what this map does. It is so inclusive, and pointing out these places of interest. The adult learners that we're talking about, as well as the tourists of today, want an experience. We maybe get overwhelmed with facts and figures in this place and that place, but they're all looking to learn something new, to know, to have an experience that is a little bit out of the ordinary. So I think that that becomes a value for adult education, but definitely for tourism.
So there's a lot of tourism dollars being spent in South Carolina. Tim, how do we get some of that money?
Again, I think you talked about, one of the questions I think you asked was about, or Dean mentioned it too, about getting money from PRT. Yeah, PRT, Parks, Recreation, Tourism, they have grants. I think we probably all will get those. But, working together regionally, I think, is one of those things where we can get a bigger bang for the buck than doing a lot of individual things. So that's where I think we have an opportunity to, from an arts culture standpoint, and several of us were talking about some Revolutionary War trail type things that you mentioned, Old 96 National Historic Site. We've got Cowpens, Kings Mountain, Walnut Groves, the Revolutionary War site, all those things. But so we've got the links, we've got the pieces of the puzzle. We just got to put the puzzle together. And then I think if we do that and package it in the right way, then we can get PRT folks and others to work with us. They're not going to just write us a check. I've had people for years say, well, PRT should just write us a check. Well, they don't really do that. But they will work with you. They will, through the grant programs, through cooperative marketing programs, and then working with the CVBs, Chris Jennings here in Spartanburg, and Kelly McCorder in Greenwood, and a number of folks with CVBs throughout the 10-county region, as well as myself and the other regional tourism folks. Get us all around one table, and I think we can really make some things happen and get PRT to the table along with us to get that done.
So I want to remind you that we are going to have, oh good, question, go ahead.
Danielle Fontaine, the studio artist from Greenville Center for Creative Arts. Anthony, you mentioned something about the 10% gap between the number of white people in the, non-white people in the creative economy as opposed to the percentage in the population at large. And the gap is very evident in this room here too. Now there are people missing here. Does anybody have any great ideas or plans or programs they've implemented to try to address that problem? Thank you.
I'm not aware of any, but I think what's helpful is that we now have the data that can show across not just our own nonprofit area field, but actually much more broadly, there is a disparity. And so I think that's a start. I'm not saying that's a solution, but there are several things going on in the nonprofit world, arts world, in terms of leadership training, inclusivity, et cetera. There's a lot of activity. But in terms of the overall creative economy, I would await a major initiative, but I think showing people that, in fact, there's a deficit there is a start.
Yeah, I would also.
Arts Grow, you want to talk about Arts Grow and the grant that we have? The Arts Grow grant, the entrepreneurial?
I wanted to make a comment on the disparity you were discussing, though. I would say, again, especially in the world of arts philanthropy, this is an issue that has really gained a lot of currency. I serve on the board of an organization called Grantmakers in the Arts. It's a national organization that's really taken the lead on this issue in identifying the gap in equity in arts funding and arts support. There's a great appetite nationally now to address this issue, and there are initiatives starting up among arts organizations and arts funders all over the country related to this. I just came back last week from New York with a group that's working on, they're called Equity in the Panel Room, dealing with how you change practices and cultural norms in processes like arts grant making. So there's a lot of work going on this issue now, and that's in the for-profit, non-profit sector. But I think that will bleed over into the greater creative sector as we go.
And I think the benchmark is the key, is that we're starting with a benchmark as an organization. In Spartanburg County, we have 34% of our population represent people of color. So we've set that as a goal, that our board and staff would represent 34% of people of color. So that at the decision-making table, at the grant-making table, on our team, our staff that comes to work every day, that their opinion and is relevant and a key part of our decision-making. So the benchmark is the key. That's what we are going to have now, so that whether you're a local arts leader or a local artist, to start with that as your conversation, to say, well, we only have 16% and we should be at 34%, so what are we going to do about it? And I think that's the key, is that with data you can make strategies. That's the whole purpose for the cultural asset inventory, is to know what we have, to establish strategies, to use what we have to move our community forward, our people, our economics. And so with that data, it can inform decisions, and that's what we are using it for sure. We also have in Spartanburg County and in the state the Arts Grow entrepreneur opportunity for artists who fall within a certain income, and you can go to the South Carolina Arts Commission website and have an entrepreneurial conversation with them about developing as a professional artist. And they have low interest loans, they have savings account. I don't know the right terminology, I'm not in the community development business, but Ken, you can speak about it.
This is a new partnership that the Arts Commission has made with an organization in the Upstate that is a community development finance institution. It's basically, they exist in all communities. Their purpose is to reinvest funds that are collected from banks for community development. And there's a lot of capital there, actually, that is typically used to invest in small businesses. We've convinced our partner in the Upstate that artists are small business people, and so they are now gaining access to capital in a couple of different ways. One, it's a program that is being piloted here in the Spartanburg area, but we're gaining new partners to do it statewide. It's to do some initial savings account towards a venture for people with very limited incomes, and that includes artists. The other end of the spectrum, once you're prepared to do that, then there's low interest microloan capital available for artists to actually invest in ventures, and we have begun a program of identifying artists who are going through a process to prepare themselves for that, and then we've got a couple of projects underway already. So that's a new program, but we're very hopeful about it. What we're delighted about is that it's access to a whole new pool of capital that we don't have to provide.
Absolutely. I want to give you some action steps, because it's very important. You've heard all of this information, but to go home and continue on with your life without helping us would be a disservice for us to not ask you. So first of all, there are some research engines that are available to us as a region. Clemson University does a wonderful tourism and economic impact study that you have access to as residents and leaders in the state of South Carolina. Americans for the Arts has an economic impact study that they do every 2 or 3 years. Spartanburg County just participated. We hope that the whole 10-county region will be able to participate in the next one that's called the Arts and Economic Prosperity Study. And then the Creative Vitality Suite, as Anthony mentioned, we use that to collect data for our Community Indicators project around the cultural vitality of our county. And so there is data. The Arts and Economic Prosperity Study is available to you whether you signed up for it or not. There's more detail, obviously, at the county level or the city or town. But there is a lot of data, and Clemson is a great research tool. USC Upstate, the Metropolitan Studies Institute, also does a lot of research around economic development and tourism impact. So just have conversations. Go to your planning departments. Ask them who's doing their data collection, but there's a lot to do that. Send the link to the Cultural Counts map to everyone you know so that they have the wow factor too. so that they can start using it in their own personal lives, link it to your corporate website so that when people are learning about your company or our region, that they see how dynamic our cultural opportunities are. Make sure that your local downtown association, some of you have a Main Street USA initiative in your community, let those leaders know. Make sure that people know about this map. Use the map to pinpoint the cultural assets in your own town. One of the things that we did is we realized that we had 13 performance venues in our downtown business district, so we started enlivening those. We hired local musicians for $125 to perform in those spaces so that people saw them and used them. And so this is an amazing space, and thank you for the accolades. We had a tremendous community effort. 17,000 school children gave to build the Chapman Cultural Center. But not everybody enjoys the arts walking through those limestone columns. The arts belong in neighborhoods and in towns and cities. And so make sure to start wherever you are and to meet your residents and provide that cultural experience wherever you can in your community. We're going to have some refreshments outside, beer and wine, and we've also got a local band called Okra, which is a great band. But Sue Schneider's going to close for us, and I hope that you'll check out the Chapman Cultural Center's website, go to West Staff. All of these folks have great websites. Add this to your website, and we just want to thank you.
Jennifer, could I say one thing before we close? A plug. This is great news to find these kinds of resources in a region of our state. On the 6th of next month in Columbia, we will be holding our annual Arts Advocacy Day that's sponsored by the South Carolina Arts Alliance. At the luncheon for that day, we will be introducing a new economic impact study for the state of South Carolina. It was done by Dr. Doug Woodward at the University of South Carolina Moore School of Business. I won't tell you the number because that would be telling, but they're good numbers. They're exciting numbers about this whole cultural sector in our state. I would also like to think of some of you people coming and visiting with your legislators on that day, telling the good news about what's going on in your region and the value that has for its development. So I hope you all think about coming out to that.
Let's give this panel a round of applause. Culture, collaboration, creativity, and community. How do those fit together? Well, today was a great example. Forums like Culture Counts and organizations like 10 at the Top and leaders, community leaders, business leaders like you, are using a medium like this to paint the picture. It's the picture that we want to see for the next 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years. And it takes new people with great ideas to create something truly representative of all of us. Think of it as our collective vision here when you leave today. We all want to see the same thing, but we might see it through a different lens. Culture is collaboration, a willingness to work together and to listen to new ideas. And creativity is just a different way of defining innovation for our communities. Those new ideas that result from a strong culture in both arts and our corporate worlds happen when we embrace creativity. That's how new businesses form, and that's how new businesses elevate. That's how we show the rest of the world that something that we already know. The Upstate is a great place to live, work, and play. Now we add those ingredients together, culture, collaboration, creativity, and that's when you have a true community. And that's what I see today from the audience, from this forum today. It's a real vision. I want to thank Jennifer Evins for helping to coordinate this program with Dean Hebel and for bringing Anthony Radich here to the Upstate. I want to thank Anthony in particular because I'm not sure Chad's going to be thanking him. You heard Anthony talk about water tanks and music venues. I think Chad got the elbow in the ribs during that part since we have a lot of water tanks. But I want to thank Anthony and our panelists for sharing the insight about the role of arts and culture in our community. As we wrap up, I want to thank again our sponsors for this forum, Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina and Spartanburg Water. Whether this has been your first exposure and opportunity with a 10 at the Top event, or if you're a regular one, thank you for joining us today. I hope you'll check out many of the initiatives, events, and activities and stay engaged as your schedule permits. You can see in the program that you have that we have some events coming up. We have the Young Professionals event called Peak on March 22nd, and our biannual regional summit to be held on September 25th. We have many other events and meetings happening throughout the year, so please check out our 10 at the Top website so that you too can stay connected. We're fortunate tonight in this beautiful facility and within the Art District of Spartanburg. So as a result, as Jennifer mentioned, we have a special treat for you at the reception. Please stick around, you have the opportunity to network and certainly listen to this special entertainment tonight from the musical group Okra. Our meeting's adjourned. Thank you for coming.